Now, for the second part of this chapter on energy of foods, we're going to be talking about metabolism. So you've heard that some people have a high metabolism or a low metabolism. What does that actually mean? What's involved with metabolism? Then we're going to talk about how we get our energy and how we use our energy. So energy in and energy out. And then finally, how to calculate the calories in a food item. So earlier we mentioned how the combustion reactions in chapter 4 are similar to our metabolism. The series of chemical reactions that will provide us with energy and also our physical body. Have you ever thought about that? As a baby grows, the baby actually gets the material to build its bones and skin and muscles and blood vessels and blood and all that stuff from the food that child eats. It's crazy. And to get that physical substance and also the energy from that, that's what metabolism's used for. So metabolism's very similar to combustion, except it's slower. So combustion, remember, that's burning something. It happens very, very quickly. Well, metabolism, we want to slow it down just a little bit, and we also want it to occur under milder conditions. Our body tissue cannot withstand those high temperatures of burning. So we have to find ways to make it milder. So our food is going to supply all of our energy needs that we have. So if we look at this top equation, it says energy in. Again, that's the food that we eat. So this energy in, the energy that we're going to gain from this food is equal to energy out. So what all we need to use that energy for. And anything that's left over, we're going to store. And we're going to talk about how we're going to store it. Now, food, even though you think it's just food, is still going to follow the law of conservation of energy, where energy cannot be created nor destroyed, but it can be changed from one form to another. So for us, that energy comes in as food and it leaves as, well, physical work, or maybe we store it in the form of fat or glycogen or something like that. I love this little weightlifter dude over to the side. So it says energy in, and it breaks that down. How do we get that energy? That energy comes from our food. So the food, we can actually break it down into the macronutrients. Oh, you're going to hear all about the macronutrients later in this chapter. We've got carbohydrates, proteins, and also fats and oils. Now, once we've taken that food in, we have to be able to do something with it. That's the energy out. Now, it might be something into just keeping our body alive. It might be the energy that's needed to extract the energy from the food. We're going to talk about that one. And also our exercise and our motion. And if we're going to go, run across a parking lot, that takes more energy than, well, just sitting on our butt in front of the screen. That requires energy. Now, if we don't use up all of that energy from the food that we ate, we store the leftover. We can store it usually in the form of fat. We're going to give you another option here in a few slides. All right, so this is this energy that's coming in. Now, the energy that comes in from that food that we eat, we can break it into the macronutrients and the micronutrients. The micro, let's talk about that first. I know it's at the bottom of the page. The micronutrients are things that we only need in very, very small amounts. We actually have an entire chapter later on dedicated to these micronutrients. This is going to be things like vitamins and minerals. Now, in this chapter, we're concerned with the macronutrients. Just like macroeconomics, we're going to deal with a larger view. In this case, these are nutrients that we need in a much larger amount. Now, there's three types of macronutrients. We have fats and oils, carbohydrates, and finally proteins. Now, off to the side, I've given you the calorie amount in each of those. So per gram, the fats and the oils have the most energy density. They contain a lot of energy. Fats and oils have 9 calories. So remember, calories, that's the way we measure energy per gram of that substance. Carbohydrates and proteins both have 4 calories per gram. So we're going to look at the differences between each of these different types, the fats, the oils, the carbs, and the proteins, within the next couple of sections. So if you see a structure, you can figure out which is which. Right now, you just need to know the number of calories per gram of each. Fats and oils are 9, the other 2 are 4. Here we have this amazing looking Thanksgiving dinner meal. But how many calories is in this meal? The way that we calculate those calories is by looking at the number of carbs, proteins, and fats using the numbers that we had on the last slide that was talking about how many calories, how much energy is contained per gram of that food. So let's see here. Now, over on the graph on the right-hand side, it's actually giving you a breakdown of the different types of macronutrients. The first one says that there are 202 grams of carbohydrates. Now, if you remember, 1 gram of carbs contains 4 calories, big calories of energy. So we're going to use that particular equivalency to figure out how many calories are due to carbs in this particular meal. Let's see here, 202 times 4, that's going to give us 808 big calories. We're going to do the same with the protein. There's 47 grams of protein. We know that 1 gram of protein contains 4 calories. And then we're going to multiply this out. Oh, I'm doing it in my head. Hopefully I do it right. Let's see, that's 28, carry the 2, 16, 18, 188. Oh, that is correct. I double checked. And then finally, we have the fat. There are 36 grams of fat. Now, fat is very dense with energy. It's not dense in the form of mass and volume, but it's a very energy dense substance in that there are 9 calories per gram of fat. So we're going to multiply this out. 324 calories. Now to find the calories in your meal, you're just going to add those together. Again, I'm trying to do this in my head. There we go. So this meal contained 1,320 calories. Make sure that you can do this type of problem. This is one of the math problems that you'll have for this particular unit. And so let's try another one. Back in the day when I was in college, I worked a couple of jobs. One of those jobs was at Pizza Hut. Now, when I first started there, I actually did not like pizza, believe it or not. But soon I found out that pizza is a pretty yummy thing. One of my favorite types of pizzas, well, cheese is probably my all-time favorite, but in second place is this particular combination. So let's see here, how many calories does a Pizza Hut personal pan pizza, so one of those little bucket pizzas, with chicken, green peppers, and tomatoes. Ooh, if you haven't tried that combination, try it. It's really yummy. Given the following. Now we're told that we have 23 grams fat, 70 grams carbs, and 31 grams protein. Go ahead, pause this, see how you do. Well, hopefully you paused it. Hopefully you have it worked out. But if not, I'm going to work it out right now. So the first thing that I have listed is that 23 grams of fat. Now, these can be listed in whatever order we want to do. So I might try to trick you. Not that I would ever try to trick you, but in case I wanted to, that's what I would do. I would, one time list fat first, the next time list carbs first. You never know. What you're going to say is there are 23 grams fat. And we know that for every 1 gram fat, there are 9 calories. And then you're going to multiply that out. For the carbohydrates, there's 70 grams. And we know that for every 1 gram of carb, there's 4 calories. That's an easy one. There we go. Finally, for the protein, for every 1 gram protein, there are, just like with our carbs, 4 calories. And then we're just going to add those together. And when we add them together, we find out that that little personal pan pizza is 611 calories. Now, in the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about how much that is of your daily intake. So most diets are actually based on a 2,000 calorie diet. So that is just over a fourth of it. So you just can't have too many of those personal pan pizzas. So those calories that we take in that you now know how to calculate, what are they used for? Well, first thing we have on there is exercise. So all physical work done with the body. So the more you exercise, you might have to increase the amount of food that you eat. So let's say you have someone that's training for the Olympics. There was an article one time that I read about Michael Phelps, who, if you know, he's a world champion, multi-medal winner at the Olympics swimmer. When he was in full training, he would eat over 10,000 calories per day. Now, most of us, we're basing our diets on 2,000 calories per day. So he would eat 5 times the amount of calories, and he was using it because the amount of exercise that he was doing. Now, it's not just exercise though. Our bodies need a certain amount of energy just to survive. So that's the metabolism part. Now we can break this down into 2 things. We have the thermic effect of food, TEF. It's also called specific dynamic action. So know both of those terms, thermic effect of food or specific dynamic action. This is the energy consumed in digesting and metabolizing our food. In other words, this is the amount of energy it takes the body to get energy out of the food that we eat. So when we eat something, our body has to break it down to get the nutrients from it. This is how much energy that takes. Now, it's estimated it takes about 10% of the calories that we eat. Anywhere from 4 to 30. 4% is the really easy to break down, like if you're eating pasta or white bread, anything that's really highly processed that's not difficult to break down. It doesn't take a whole lot. Now, if you are eating more complex things, like complex sugars or proteins especially, those are going to take more calories to break down. Now, the last part talks about basal or basal, I've heard it both ways, metabolism. And that's the energy that's required just for you to stay alive. It's the body's energy expenditure while at rest. So to keep your heart beating, to keep your lungs expanding and contracting, to keep all of your organs working. Now, they estimate that this is about 1 calorie, 1 big calorie. Oh, I'm going to try and write on here. So 1 big calorie per hour per kilogram of body weight. So if you're curious, you could actually get an estimate on how much that would be for someone of your size. Now, this is actually determined by, it can be calculated by determining the total energy output in the absence of exercise and this thermic effect of food. So more or less you fast, so you're not eating, and you lay down because you don't want to exercise or move at all, and you see how much energy is being used. So that is the basal or basal metabolism, how we're going to use this energy. Now, the energy that's not used by our bodies, so that's not used by exercise, and that it's not used to keep our body running, is going to be stored. Now, as it's being stored, it can be stored in one of two ways. We have glycogen, which is short-term storage. So this is like from meal to meal, we have this glycogen storage. This makes a starch-like substance that is quickly used again for the next meal. But we can also have long-term storage, and this is where fat comes in. So this is called adipose tissue, and it is our long-term storage. For every pound of fat or adipose tissue that we have, that's the energy equivalent of 3,500 big calories. So if you want to burn a pound of fat, you're going to have to burn in excess of 3,500 calories. It kind of goes down to this numbers game, but I know it's more complex than what we would hope it to be. So yes, if you want to lose weight, you're going to have to burn a bunch more calories, and that's what we're trying to do. Now, you don't want to get rid of all your fat, though. Fat has some very, very important roles in our body. So let's look at what all fat can do. Number one, it's going to insulate the body against heat loss, so help keep us warm. It's going to provide protective cushioning around our major organs, hopefully not too much cushioning, but just enough. We need to have some of that. And it also can be converted to energy, of course, if fasting or if there's a food shortage. So we need to have a little bit of fat on our bodies, just hopefully not too much.